Hello everyone, this is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This episode will be called The Future Crocodile Temple. Before we get started real quick, if you'd like to support the channel on Patreon, you'll get your videos early on Sunday. There'll be no commercials, and there's an email where we can talk back and forth. If you're interested in getting private lessons for astral projection, if you've never projected before, or if perhaps you have projected but you like to do it more often and get more control over the process, how often you do it, achieving your targets, I'd be glad to offer you information on how you can set something like that up with me. And you'll find links to both Patreon and information in the description. Okay, if you recall from last Saturday, there was the Galactic Peace Conference, and the Master tried to do a sneak attack on the Grey's planet. I was able to arrange to have half of the Grey forces hanging back, guarding their planet and their solar system, rather than it all being at the Galactic Peace Conference, which was and is the custom. But of course, I expected the Master to come up with some sort of scheme, and he did. I finally was rescued by the Havenites. I'd set that up ahead of time with one word danger, that I would broadcast that they were monitoring me and they'd pull me out before the Master was able to attack me again in his great anger. I was just able to get out of my body again last night. I immediately went to visit my angel. He was very happy to see me. He told me that the war was not going very well, that the Master's forces were in retreat. Apparently, they were wiped out on their attack on the Grey planet. They expected an easy victory. Instead, they found a large force there waiting for them. Now, the Master is in serious trouble, and he's currently keeping a low profile. He's in hiding, and his forces are in full retreat. My angel advised me, though, that if I was going to astral project, to kind of keep a low profile myself. He's told me, my angel, that he is using his abilities, his power, to help to shield me, but in the physical. But when I'm on the astral, I'm more exposed. So he said, perhaps you should do some time travel trips, because those are a lot harder to typically track. So I decided to take his advice, and I started thinking about where I would go. And I remembered talking about an abandoned temple that I called the Crocodile Temple, that I found in North America thousands of years in the future, somewhere around 10 or 11,000 years in the future. There wasn't much to see. I wasn't there for very long. I just saw this ruins of a city, and I saw this big stone temple that really had an Egyptian type appearance to it. And there was these two huge crocodile statues out in front. But before I could actually go in, I was pulled back to my body. So I decided to try to visit that temple once again. Although I made a conscious decision to back it off a number of hundreds of years, so that perhaps I could catch it when it was in its prime, and see what that civilization was like. So I concentrated on that, let's say somewhere around 10,000 to 10,500. I forget exactly. And I homed in on that destination. Of course, I blacked out, as I always do with long distance time travel trips. When I regained consciousness, I was hovering over a very changed Earth. Quite shocking, actually. The first thing I noticed is there was no ice that I could see. Antarctica was green, and there was nothing in the North Polar area. There was just sea there now. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of sea, a lot of ocean, a lot more than we're used to seeing. I'll try to summarize what I was able to view from my orbital position above the Earth. The first thing I saw was Florida was gone. The eastern coast was most definitely affected. I would say that somewhere around 50 miles all along the eastern coast was now underwater. The Gulf Coast was also very much affected. The waters went very far inland, and states like Louisiana were virtually, and Mississippi were mostly engulfed in water. The California area, the Baja Peninsula, seemed to be missing. I believe that was underwater. Looking at South America, there was a large lake in the middle of the northern part of the continent in the Amazon area. And then there was another body of water that started down near Buenos Aires and made its way up north, which formed another large water area within that continent. Looking at Europe, Western Europe was a series of islands. That was the biggest difference I saw. The northern polar areas of Russia were also under areas of water, probably going in some 100 miles or so. There weren't a lot of Pacific islands, I can tell you that. The Pacific Ocean looked virtually uninterrupted. I think I saw some new volcanic islands popping up near where Hawaii is today, but they looked very new. There wasn't a lot of greenery on them. They were just volcanic. Let's see. Australia had a couple of lakes in it, and it looked like the northwestern part of the area had some erosion as well, and the Northwest Territory, the coast, had some erosion up at the top. That's pretty much what I saw that I can recall right now. So I think it's fairly straightforward to say that sea levels have risen substantially. I recalled where I found the Crocodile Temple, and it was near a body of water, which was down near the Gulf. Now, keep in mind, now the Gulf is a lot further inland, as I had mentioned, than it had currently be. I landed, unfortunately, there's no state boundaries that you can see from space, so I'm just trying to use the best of my geographic knowledge. I believe I landed near where the new Gulf borders the land. It's somewhere near Arkansas, the southern portion of Arkansas, which of course was also a little shocking. As I lowered myself down to get closer and closer, I found the area that I had been in before, although it was different than I'd seen previously. It was wetter than when I had seen it, and the city was actively being built and actively occupied by, it looks like, many thousands of people. The houses were made out of a mud brick type of clay, but the Crocodile Temple was made from cut stone. I got in closer still to see what was going on. I could see a lot of busy work going on. Construction of the town was happening. The temple itself was being, I'd say it was somewhere around 3/4 of the way built. There was a massive workforce. There seemed to be most of the people working, the humans working, they were pulling in a variety of stones, and that they were moving them in very primitive ways, using a variety of what's best to describe them, like sleds that were pulled by draft animals, and there was humans all around it to accompany these sleds. There were many workers that were occupied digging up some of these rocks and chipping away at them with some odd tools that they had. They looked very handmade type tools. They certainly didn't look manufactured rather. But what definitely shocked me, even more than what I saw the Earth in its future appearance, was that many of the people who were doing a lot of the grunt work, the unskilled work, pulling the various materials around, making rope, dragging blocks or loading blocks onto these carts is perhaps a better term, because they did have wheels on them. And but they were very shabbily dressed. They were very thin. You could tell that they weren't fed properly. There was another group of workers that did look much healthier, and they were performing skilled work. They were cutting the blocks using chisels, I assume, to make sure that they fit properly into this temple. And one of the stone crocodiles had already been placed in its place on the right side of this newly constructed temple. And I could see that there was another very large crocodile statue. And we're talking, these things were 4 times the size of a man. So they were very large. But another one was being worked on definitely by skilled craftsmen. I started thinking that I wonder if these grunts who are working, doing this unskilled work, they seem to me to be slaves. I went closer still. I was able to scan some thoughts, and all I could feel from those people was pain, hunger, and misery. They appeared to be war captives. There wasn't a racial component to it because the people appeared to be a variety of different skin colors. But they had the thoughts of having been captured in some sort of conflict, along with their families. And it was, of course, shocking that once again we have slavery on the North American continent. That I was very disappointed in that. For a moment, though, I just wanted to get closer. I landed, and I could be seen at that point, and a few of the slave workers saw me, but I made a motion where I put my hand over my mouth, and they understood that I was there secretly. I could tell in their thoughts that they understood that was the gesture, and I kind of hid behind one of the empty carts because since I was in the future, my body was visible to physical people in this particular time and dimension. The temple itself was quite awesome, and as I said, it reminded me of the Egyptian temples. It was built of stone, and it was rising very high into the air. I would say that it was probably looking to be somewhere around maybe 10 times the size of a man from bottom to top. Keep in mind that the top was still not finished. This was a work in progress. I was curious though about the whole crocodile or alligator motif. That seemed to be very odd. I then flew back up into the air and started thinking about what course of action I should take here. I decided to watch a little bit longer to see what was going on and try to think whether I should take action or not. This is always a problem that I have when I go into the future because I can be seen, I can interact. So I always have to decide, do I interfere or don't I? But how can I not interfere in slavery? I mean, how can I just let that go? I guess what really tipped the balance is I saw a woman who was somewhere around the ages of late teens, perhaps 20. She was completely naked. I could tell from her thoughts that she was afraid, but also resigned. And she was being led by, let's call them priests. They had on these robes and they were walking with her. There were some soldiers guarding them as they walked. They probably went a quarter of a mile or so till they got to the edge of the new gulf. They started ringing bells. The priests had these bells that they pulled from their robe, and they started ringing them. I didn't know what the heck that was all about, but I figured it was probably some part of some ritual. As I watched, though, crocodilians started to appear, started to mass near the shore. I was wondering where this was going. At some predetermined moment, one of the larger priests grabbed the woman, and she struggled, but she knew there was nothing that could save her. As I said, all I felt now was resignation, tinged with extreme fear. And then another priest grabbed her legs, and they threw her into the middle of the mass of these rather large crocodilians. I'm not going to get into what I saw next. That's going to haunt my nightmares. That caused me to make up my mind immediately. I caused my body to glow, take on the appearance of some sort of, heavenly god. I figured these people obviously have superstitions. They're feeding a woman to crocodiles. They've got a temple with crocodiles. So evidently, they must have some sort of superstitious belief wherein these crocodiles have some sort of spiritual significance, and these people must be superstitious. So I descended, and in view of everyone, and sent forth a strong telepathic command that was buoyed by my anger. And it was weird because many of these priests and the other people around fell to their knees with their hands over their ears as if they could shut out my telepathic screams. And as I descended and hovered in the sky somewhere around 40 feet up, I burst forth these rays of light, and I commanded in each of their thoughts to set these war captives free, or I would destroy their civilization and take their temple and destroy it and level their city. To say that they were fearful is an understatement. They were groveling on the ground, wishing they could get deeper and deeper into the ground. The war captives were stunned at first, but one of them started running towards the city with the thoughts of taking his family and getting out of there. And then pretty soon there was a stampede of these war captives, all fleeing this atrocious slavery and human sacrifice. I sincerely hope that this is some sort of an isolated, awful civilization for the future, but I just don't know. At that point, I guess I was experiencing strong emotions, as you can imagine, and I started feeling the impulse to go back to my body because of these strong emotions. Remember, I told you that any type of strong emotion many times is treated as a reason to be pulled back into your body. So, from the thousands of years in the future, I was yanked back quite sharply and jarringly back into my body. And I leaped up out of my bed and scrawled down these notes. And hopefully, I was able to get across what I saw fairly accurately. If you found that experience interesting, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, make sure you have that bell properly rung so that you'll get notified when my twice weekly videos come out, which is 2 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday and 8:15 a.m. on Saturday. And that is U.S. Eastern Time, which is really New York City time. And please, I'd love to see your questions, comments. You guys always have brilliant ways to spark more thought on my experiences, and I appreciate it. And as always, this is Rick, and I'll see you on the astral plane.